Welcome, I'm the Deadwood Jedi, and today we're doing another Raid Shadow Legends video. We're in my account today because I'm about to show you guys a completely new Clan Boss speed tune. This is for Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss. Nightmare Clan Boss works on both. We're going to be using Sir Nicholas, Santa, in an unkillable team. This is a Santa Unkillable, and it's on auto, guys. It's completely auto run. Santa Unkillable on auto. That's what we're doing today. I'm super excited about this because I haven't seen this anywhere before. I don't think anyone's been able to do it because Sir Nicholas Santa has a completely whack AI. He prioritizes a shield skill instead of prioritizing his unkillable ability. Well, obviously we prefer the unkillable ability. That's the one we actually want to use. But because of that, because the cooldowns are different for those two skills, he's almost impossible to use for Clan Boss because it's really hard to tune him. He uses that shield ability over and over again on a 3-turn cooldown, even if it overlaps with his unkillable ability, which is on a 4-turn cooldown. So you can't get any regular tune out of it. It becomes very difficult to use. Well, I solved it. I brought in Painkeeper to make this work. And by bringing in Painkeeper, we're reducing those cooldowns, making that 4-turn cooldown for his unkillable ability actually a 3-turn cooldown. And making that 3-turn cooldown for his shield ability, which he likes to use first, remember, we're turning that into a 2-turn cooldown. But it's an interesting thing when you have a skill that reduces cooldowns. And that's kind of the mechanic we're using here to make this work. Because that 3-turn cooldown, because it's a 3-turn skill on the one he wants to use, if we make Sir Nick use that right after Painkeeper reduces the cooldowns, then it's still going to be 3 turns before it's ready again. Well, 3 turns later, if we have Painkeeper going fast enough, we can make sure that he uses that skill right after the cooldowns are reduced again. And so what's actually happening is we're not reducing the cooldown for the skill that he wants to use. What we're doing is reducing the cooldown for the unkillable ability. And because of that, we're actually able to take that 4-turn cooldown, that unkillable ability, and turn it into a 3-turn cooldown. And we're able to manipulate where we want it and have it work regularly. So we can actually make an unkillable team with this. Oh, it's a mouthful. But the point of the matter is that we time how we take Sir Nicholas, we time how we take Painkeeper, and we make it into an unkillable team. Now, you might say, well, can't you do that same thing with Tower? Absolutely. We could absolutely do this with Tower. That's not an issue. But Sir Nicholas, we haven't been able to do that before. And by using Sir Nicholas, it actually enables us to use some other champions that maybe we wouldn't be able to override. Otherwise, I'm not going to show that today. I'm actually going to show that in the composition coming up tomorrow, where we bring in a different champion to take the stun, which is the other important part. And so for this one, I'm going to be showing you this Clan Boss team against Green Affinity, because that's always the most difficult one. And to do that, I need to bring in 2 specific champions. I need to bring in a weak affinity champion to take the stun. In this case, it's going to be Skull Crusher. And then I need to bring in somebody to clear those debuffs. So also in this case, we're going to be using Doom Priest. You don't necessarily have to use Doom Priest. I find it to be the easiest of the champions available, but the way this is actually tuned, we're able to bring in pretty much any cleanser. Because Skull Crusher has a 3-turn cooldown on his unkillable ability, and we're bringing Painkeeper to reduce those cooldowns, we actually don't need a cleanser necessarily. He can take the stun and not have it be cleansed, and it'll work out just fine. So we could bring in somebody else instead of Doom Priest. We could bring in a Bad Alcazar. We could bring in a Bad Alcazar for sure. Anybody that really does a cleanse regularly, that's their prioritized ability, can work for this position. But that's a more of a minor deal. I think most people end up using Doom Priest for this kind of a role, and it'll work just great. So that's kind of what's going on here with this team. I'm actually really excited about this. So I want to first show you guys the champions. Then I have a Nightmare run lined up for you guys, and I have an Ultra Nightmare run for you guys lined up. So let me show you the champions that we're bringing into this composition, and that way you got an idea of what we're doing and the speeds we need to make it happen. So as we jump in here, let's start with Sir Nicholas, Santa, the one, the only Santa for the Santa Unkillable. Now, you might notice that his speed is actually a little faster than you would normally think for someone that's supposed to go last, because Sir Nick does need to go last, but we have him going at 175 speed for Sir Nicholas And I think that's going to be just fine. It's going to have him be last in the turn order. And actually, with the speed set, it's actually just a little bit under 175. There's not a lot of wiggle room with this stuff, guys, especially if you want to use it for both Nightmare and Ultra Nightmare. So just be aware of that. Try to stick to these speeds. Obviously, I will have them on the website, and that should make things a lot easier as far as figuring out what you can use or whatnot. And as always, you can plug these into the calculator as well to figure out what works and what doesn't. But 175 speed for Sir Nicholas. I have him in the defensive and offensive masteries. Now, the one thing with his stuff, you see, I do have one speed set that does matter. I was going to say, nope, that's it. Oh, the one thing you might want to notice is that he has a lot of HP. That's okay. Even when if we needed to worry about stun targeting, it shouldn't be an issue because we're bringing in a weak affinity champion to take the stun, and that's going to be pretty crucial here. And also that weak affinity champion that we're bringing in to take the stun is going to be none other than, let's find him. Now, Skull Crusher obviously has an unkillable ability, but not only that, Skull Crusher puts a counterattack on all his allies. That means the stun is more targeted towards him because the clan boss doesn't want to attack counterattack. So that's really helpful for us in making sure the stun goes to the right spot. You can use Skull Crusher great on red affinity champion as well as green affinity and void. I haven't tried him on blue. I don't know how that's going to work because when he's strong affinity, that makes it a lot harder to get the targeting. The clan boss really doesn't want to attack him and will likely hit everybody else. So that could be a little bit tricky, but definitely works against red affinity, definitely works against void, and definitely works against green affinity. The speed we have for Skull Crusher is 205. Offense and defensive masteries. One interesting thing, I do have Life Drinker on him. I'd probably recommend not putting that on him if you're building this from scratch. It should work regardless, but always easier to have that stun targeting when he's not healing up compared to the other champions on the team. Painkeeper. Now, Painkeeper is going to be our fast champion. We have her going at 241 speed, and you can see she's got a fair amount of HP on her as well. Mastery support tree just gets some more healing, and the offensive tree, nothing really crazy with that build at all. But we're definitely going to be using her to cool down those skills. We do have to have her on a 4-3 ratio. She has to go fast so that she get that 4-turn cooldown happens. And so that's why Painkeeper is going to be at that kind of crazy speed, 241. Now, the rest of our champions, we have two more champions, right? The first champion we have is our DPS champion. In this case, we're going to bring in Fane, who just brings in so many things. Weaken, decrease defense, some poisons. And because we're an unkillable team, Fane's actually really good for that. We have Fane going at 177 speed. You can see right there in masteries, offense and defense. I obviously could build her more for damage and more crit damage and stuff, but I think this is going to be just fine build. And then the very last champion, obviously, because we're going to be doing Spirit Affinity first, is Doom Priest. Like I said, offense, defensive masteries. As far as total stats, you can see 188 speed is where we have her at. We're going to get a little bit of healing from her too as it goes through. We're going to jump into a Nightmare Clan Boss run right now, and then I'm going to show you an Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss run after, so you can see the timing of these things and just kind of get a view of the runs itself and kind of see what's out there as far as the gameplay goes. Now, thankfully, I've already done an Ultra Nightmare film against Green Affinity, so we were able to see that. And then I do have, I'm doing Nightmare right now because we have Green Affinity for that, so I'm able to show you that as well. And then if we have time in this video, which I'm not sure we will, I'll go ahead and I'm going to show you guys what this comp can do. Full-on damage against like red affinity, so we're not worried about bringing in a Doom Priest to cleanse the stun. We can actually skip that whole part of it. So we'll do that in a little bit here. In the meantime, let's jump into this run. All right, guys, so we're about to jump into this run here with Nightmare. So I'm going to show you the Nightmare run, which is green affinity, so you can see that it works against that. And I'm going to show you an Ultra Nightmare run against red affinity, so you can see the damage potential of this composition. Now, we start off pretty normally. We want the tuning to get this right. It really only takes one and a half cycles to get there. Painkeeper needs to use her A1 to start. We're going to have to delay a little bit. Skull Crusher actually can use the Unkillable right from the jump, which is nice. Gives us a couple extra attacks as a result. You'll notice Doom Priest is going to go super fast to cleanse everything. Now, this is the instructions for using for Nightmare. Now, with Sir Nick against Nightmare, we can go ahead and use the Unkillable right from the start, and we'll be in tune in no time. The instructions for Nightmare against green affinity are exactly the same as they would be against any other affinity. It doesn't change. Now, Painkeeper's going to use the A1 on their first attack on turn count 1 here. Everyone else is going to go through their business. It is important, though, that we have Sir Nicholas use his A2 ability. There you can see the combat tactics on the second attack from the Painkeeper, and there Sir Nick uses that shield ability right there. That's the perfect timing for it. That's what we need. Now, Skull Crusher here does go first on this turn and won't ever again. After that, it's going to be Doom Priest. She cleanses the stuns. Okay, I wanted to pause it right here because you can see Painkeeper has 2 skills available, the A1 as well as the A2. Now, what we really want to do is use the A1 skill to give her a little bit of a speed boost, which will give her a second turn. Not this exact turn count, but in the future, so she'll always have 2 attacks before the stun lands, and the second attack will be the A2 ability to give some healing. However, I didn't do that this turn count. I do that the next turn count, which works as well. It doesn't break the tune, it actually works just fine, but it's a lot simpler if you use the A1 here and then the A2 on the next attack. But as you can see, I use the A2 ability right here. It's going to be fine. I'm just going to delay it later on. Everyone else is going to go through skills. Really important that Santa right there uses that A1 skill. That's going to be important just to time things out. You see the stun goes, not a big deal. We will get that cleansed in time from Doom Priest. And even if we didn't, Painkeeper's cooldown would mean Skull Crusher is going to have that fall off of him. It's kind of a unique thing with this. We don't necessarily need a cleanser for the stun with Skull Crusher, which is great. Now, as far as this goes, we're going to continue using our skills, and there goes the Unkillable with Sir Nick. And from this point on, we are unkillable, and we're completely in tune. I like the manual just a little bit just to ensure everything's in point. Here you can see the combat tactics, and this is something I want to point out. We use the combat tactics, so here you can see it would be nice. We don't have to. We can do it next turn. It'll sync itself up. But it's nice to use the A1 with Skull Crusher there so he has the Unkillable ability next turn. But here you're going to see Sir Nick is going to use his shield ability. It's a 3-turn cooldown, so he uses it there. Well, in 3 more turns, it'll be at this exact same spot because he used it after the cooldown reduction. But because of that cooldown reduction, his Unkillable ability is now on a 3-turn cooldown, and so it's going to happen at the same time every single turn. And that's the beauty of using Painkeeper with Sir Nick, and that's how we're able to put it on auto. Now, I did say that we don't need to cleanse the stun because Skull Crusher kind of takes care of that himself. Doom Priest, however, does need to cleanse the debuffs. That's the speed part, right? So if we have another AoE cleanser on a 3-turn or even a 4-turn cooldown that they prioritize, we can use them in that Doom Priest slot when we're playing with Skull Crusher. In this case, the champion I would prefer to use would be Bad Alcazar, because Bad Alcazar is not only going to cleanse that stun, he's also going to put up poisons on the clan boss and make our champions hit harder while poisons are on the clan boss. So that's kind of a big win there. There aren't any other champions that I firmly believe would be excellent choices for that, so there's none that I really would recommend outside of that. I suppose you could use like a Battle Sage and give you an increased attack buff as well, but that's very similar to what Doom Priest brings, honestly. And I think if you're going to use somebody other than Doom Priest, it's probably Bad Alcazar or it's nobody. That said, there are options out there, so definitely explore it. Try and maximize the damage as much as you can. Let me go ahead and let you guys watch this run. When we're done with this, we're going to watch an Ultra Nightmare run. We're going to watch it against Red Affinity, where I don't use a cleanser because we don't have to worry about the debuffs, and because of Skull Crusher, he doesn't have to worry about the stun. So that's going to come up after this so you can see the maximum damage possible. 29 million against Nightmare, not too bad. Definitely a 2-key Nightmare team. It's also going to be a 3-key or Ultra Nightmare team. Now for this one, we are going to take out Doom Priest. We're going to bring in Septimus to be our damage dealer. And we're doing that because we don't need to worry about the debuffs from the red affinity. I mean, they're not great, but we don't have to worry about them. And we also don't need to worry about the stun targeting because of Skull Crusher. And because Skull Crusher is going to kind of take the stun away from himself anyhow, and Painkeeper is going to reduce the cooldown, so he'll work anyhow, no matter what. So we're going to start off Ultra Nightmare, Painkeeper with the A1, Skull Crusher with the counterattack. We can do that right from the jump. It's great. Painkeeper's first attack is going to be the A1, second attack is going to be combat tactics, and then we're going to be right in the flow. Everybody else is just using their skills as it comes. Now it is important that we have Sir Nicholas use that shield attack right from the get-go here, and you'll see that coming up in a moment. And then Painkeeper is going to use on their second attack, just like on Nightmare, the cooldown reduction. So there's the shield. Here's the cooldown reduction, combat tactics, and then you can see right there, we got that A1 from Skull Crusher, hasn't been reduced enough yet, and he's going to use his Unkillable ability right before the stun, which is perfect timing. Everybody else is just kind of do their thing. Now we are going to use the A2 from Painkeeper right away on this one. There is no delay. We don't have to use any other skills in between. And there goes Sir Nicholas is going to use the A1 there. There goes Skull Crusher with the Unkillable, and now we're pretty much in tune. The only thing we have to make sure is that we use Sir Nicholas's Unkillable ability right here before the AoEs. Everything's available, so we do need to use the Unkillable ability right there. And once we do that, now we're good to go. Yes, Skull Crusher takes an extra turn. Yes, Painkeeper takes an extra turn there. So it's not like we're perfectly unkillable right from the jump, but at this point, the Clan Boss isn't doing enough damage to really threaten us. And if he is, then we probably haven't built these champions correctly. That said, we're going to be unkillable pretty much from this point on. You can see Painkeeper's vulnerable there, but after this, we're in good shape. And this is going to be the same, whether it's green affinity, red affinity, blue affinity, doesn't matter. The turn order doesn't change, as long as we have the cleanser in the appropriate spot. And so there we go. There goes the stun on Skull Crusher. And he's going to go ahead and cleanse that. Everything else pretty much is on auto here, guys. There's nothing really to worry about as it goes right through. You can see, there we go, unkillable. We are protected. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Alright, before I let this run and you guys just watch it, there's a couple little things I do want to point out for you guys. One, we don't need to use Doom Priest as a cleanser. We could use a Bad Alcazar in that spot. As long as we have Skull Crusher there, we don't have to worry about the stun being cleansed. So the only thing we need to cleanse is the debuffs from green affinity or red affinity or blue affinity, whichever one you want. If you find that to be important, bring in that cleanser. Doom Priest will work on all those affinities. The other thing I want to point out is that when you're trying to use Skull Crusher when he's strong affinity, basically against the blue clan boss, I believe it's possible to use him as a stun target. However, it is difficult. You have healing coming from Painkeeper, you have healing coming from Sir Nicholas, not to mention the shield Sir Nicholas has out there, so it can be a bit tricky. There's a couple things that you can do to try to make that happen. One, make sure that he does not have Life Drink or any other forms of healing other than what you get from Painkeeper. In this sense, we're using the stuff we've learned from the budget Maneater build and applying it to Skull Crusher here to ensure that he has very little HP, but that the rest of the champions have an abundant amount. Also important is to make sure that you don't have weak affinity champions as your DPS champions. I would not use Fane. I would not use Septimus. I would not use any champions that are green affinity. It makes it really hard to target the stun. In the same respect, when you're going against red affinity clan boss here, bringing in blue affinity champions to do your damage is going to make it a lot harder to focus a stun on Skull Crusher. However, I can tell you, I did test at least against red affinity, you can make it so that Skull Crusher takes the stun at least at a certain point once they're all the way down to 0 HP. So the key is building Skull Crusher with very little defense and a lot of HP, making sure that that heal from Painkeeper gives him just enough to take the stun, but considerably less than the rest of the champions there. And as long as the other champions are healing up over 50% of their HP, you should be able to target the stun on Skull Crusher. It's a dicey proposition though, so you might be better off actually paying attention to my next video tomorrow where I show you another champion you can use against the blue affinity clan boss and the red affinity clan boss. That'll make your life a whole lot easier. So pretty impressive runs, guys. I think you can see there's a lot of potential with this. Sir Nick hits really hard versus a man-eater. I definitely can build this up better. I don't think I have anybody in this fully maxed out either. But being able to 2-key is pretty remarkable. Even a 3-key against green affinity, that's still really good because you have a nice steady run that you can actually click auto on a lot earlier than I generally do. So that's pretty dope. You don't have to change out a whole lot of champions. Like this one right here, I could use that against green affinity because the green champions, they work perfectly well with it. Yeah, so I mean, I think it's a pretty awesome team, quite frankly. So guys, I'm trying to bring you something new every single day that I can. It's a challenge, but I know you guys are enjoying this stuff. So do me a favor, hit that subscription button, hit the notification bell, and go ahead and like the video. That stuff really means a lot to me. I'm trying to be able to do this, continue to do this full time, and your support just by subscribing and liking the video makes a huge difference. You have no idea. So I would really appreciate that. Go ahead, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think about this build. Are you excited about the other versions I have? Oh yeah, I have more versions, guys. I've got a 4-3 version of this. I have another champion to use instead of Skull Crusher when it's not green affinity. Not only that, I've got a composition where I can use Kreela in this team. Pretty dope. There's some real range as far as building this team out. There's a lot of ways you can do this, guys. So I'm gonna have like 2 or 3 more videos coming out about this composition specifically, so you guys can get all that information. That's gonna be the next few days. Just so you know, also next week I am going away on a little mini vacation for a week, so I'm gonna be gone. Probably not going to be a lot of new updates from me, not a lot of new videos, so that's why hitting that notification bell is good. I'm going to try and have a couple of videos spaced out so you guys can get something while I'm gone. I'm not completely blank and void, but I just want to give you that heads up so you're not going, where's Deadwood Jedi? So that's it, guys. Till next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.